Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of your NXT 2.0 post show. And we have a very special show today because tonight was the go home show for Worlds Collide.
Worlds are colliding!
Of course, the card wasn't filled out until tonight, so there's a lot of news regarding NXT and the upcoming Worlds Collide show. But before we get to that, Patrick, how you doing, man?
I don't know. I have a diaper killer in my living room right now.
Sounds like a very
more,
cheesy 80s B movie.
yeah, it's just a pun right there. I'm doing okay. I mean, I got to see a movie I've been dying to see for that was when it was announced in 2020 at Comic-Con about that they announced this at a panel. I'm excited that I got to see it. The movie was better than I expected. If we have time, I'll talk about that. But I mean, it's NXT right now. Let's get into the nitty gritty. It's Worlds Collide coming up this weekend, right after Clash at the Castle. So I mean, there's moving parts from this. So let's see what goes on here.
Yeah, so the show opened with a really solid 2-segment match between Apollo Crews and Grayson Waller, probably Grayson Waller's best solo match to date. What do you think about the match?
It was pretty impressive that Waller held his own with a former Intercontinental Champion. But, I mean, he did the same thing with AJ. The thing that bothered me about it was that how they played off that whole eye thing in stoppage, and then they do it again for the finish. It's like, come on, don't make it like, oh, my eye. Just get to the finish, get to the go home part. And just enjoy it. It made Waller look strong, but I think it made Apollo look a little weak in this spot because it's like you're trying to make Apollo and build him up to go against Braun Breaker at some point. That's what they've been hinting for long term. You're not helping Apollo in this situation with Grayson Waller. You're hindering him because of the fact that, yes, Apollo is willing to help him out, but the problem is that Waller, as much as he's a dick, can get himself over on any night. But it's just this match didn't make much sense. There's no go from which point of view. It's just like one of those episodes of a show where you're just watching, like, this to get to the next big thing.
So the next match on the card, I don't have much to say about that, is Kaden Carter and Kitana Chance versus Tatum Paxley and Ivy Nile. Tag Champions 1. Then, in a very weird post-match promo, I thought, they said they've defeated everybody for the NXT Women's Tag Team Championships.
They've only had it for 3 weeks.
Right. That was my thought, too. Because if you look at their reign, they've had it for 29 days, not even a full month. They have yet to defend the titles a single time since winning them in the Fatal 4-Way.
They haven't done jack shit with them. Let's be very honest, and this is a gripe that I have with a lot of freaking WWE productions. They'll be like, oh, we defeated everybody. We've defeated this team, this team, this team, this team. And then all of a sudden it's one of the teams that's from a different brand that they're like, oh my God, we did not beat them. That was the gauge of most of the stuff tonight. There's some stuff tonight I liked, but this is just it didn't make sense. And then you put Nikki at ASH, right? And Doudrop. I get the Worlds Collide thing. They're on Raw and everything. But you had the crowd say Nikki Cross. Like, come on. If you're going to acknowledge that they're Scottish tag team, right? Legit, like, right, on main roster. Take away the Nikki Ash thing, bring back Nikki Cross, and make them like the Scottish killers, like the polar opposite of the Viking Raiders.
The issue with the Nikki ASH character is it's very one-dimensional, yes, but she won the belt a week after she started it. If you're almost a superhero and you reach your goal, you win the championship, what does it take to become a superhero? Why is she not doing her best to become a superhero? It makes no sense.
If you're gonna do ASH, change it to AASV, because she's supposed to be a heel right now in this whole situation. It doesn't make absolutely
I don't
sense.
mind that. Imagine being villains are supposed to be narcissistic, egomaniacal. Thinking you're the hero of your story makes perfect sense with that. That I don't mind. It's more so she's been almost a superhero for a year. When is she going to try to become an actual superhero? And what's it going to take to do that? There's no end game for the character. It
It's gone
makes no
stale.
sense.
It's gone perfectly stale. And with Worlds Collide, it gives them an opportunity to strip that away and give her an edge on it and go back to that sadistic, maniacal Nikki Cross part, and her and Doudrop being that two tag team crazy people, and to win, they can win this title. And I'm going to predict that because
Can
they're
we
the
call her
stronger.
Piper Niven again?
Yeah, Piper Niven. Nikki Cross and Piper Niven. It's just those two are the strong. And how's this match going to validate, Chance and Carter? Like, it's not. If it's basically a stopgap for them to actually show, hey, we defeated a team on the main roster. It's stuff like that. If you're going to do this, and this is my gripe, and I've had this gripe with the Universal title, make it sense. Unify those titles. They basically pointed out on SmackDown, not either the previous week, I think it was 2 weeks ago or so, and I said this to you. They basically said, Pat McAfee, this title is defended on all brands. Said it point blank on air, on Fox, mind you. If you're going to do that and make your main roster women's tag titles poignant, and you have the NXT one, unify those titles at Worlds Collide, let it make sense, because now you have Raquel and Aaliyah as your women's tag titles on the main roster, and you have Carter and Chance on there. This is the perfect time to actually unify these titles and let them make sense, and then have the main roster titles go through all three brands. It's the original what it's supposed to be, and now it's like, oh, wait a minute, these titles were supposed to be on all three brands. Well, guess what? You screwed the pooch. Pretty blatantly blunt on that. You wanted to have two separate brands with the same title for the women, for the tag titles, and then you screwed the pooch and were like, oh shit, NXT doesn't have one. And then you just created this huge thing with the Dusty Cup. Don't get me wrong, the Dusty Cup for that title was awesome. But what my gripe is that now you're with the new regime, you're like, oh shit, we have two women's titles for the tag titles with three brands. It would make sense just to unify with the amount of talent we have. And it's like, come on, man. But I think Cross and Niven are going to win that.
So you've got your rant out of the way.
Oh, get yours. Go get it, boy.
The next segment brings me to mine. Joe Gacy and the Schism and the Dyad, the Schism. We're cutting.
Isn't it? Before you go on there, isn't it funny they take a Tool song in order to make it faction?
Right. So, for those of you who don't know, Schism was released by Tool in 2001. Great live band, by the way. If you ever get a chance to see them, they put on one hell of a show. Tool is fantastic. And the Latterus album, in general, is really good top to bottom. Of course, it's really long, like every Tool song or every Tool album. But
every good album is. Look at Pink Floyd too.
Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin has a lot of really long music. But to get off of the tangent, Joe Gacy's cutting a promo. The whole point of giving somebody a microphone is so that the audience at home can hear what they're saying. But because the audience says a word in a chant, it's a word, mind you. We've all heard worse. It's a word in the English language that they were saying. It's not the end of the world. Because they were saying a word in their chant, they kept cutting the audio feed so you couldn't hear a word Joe Gacy was saying. Not because of the crowd, but because of the producers of the show. You mentioned WWE production. That is the most Bush League thing I've seen from them in years. And that's saying a lot considering how bad their production can be at times. The whole point of handing the guy a microphone is so that I can hear what he has to say. And instead, you wasted a lot of valuable TV time for him not to get his point across through no fault of his own, mind you, because of a word. It's an F-bomb. We've all heard it. Okay. I saw people on Twitter blaming the audience. Those people paid a ticket. Unless they're hurling slurs or hurting somebody else in the audience, why is that an issue? Or, well, they didn't pay for a ticket because NXT lets their fans in for free. But regardless, why is this an issue if they're not actively going out of their way to target and hurt somebody? They're not. Why are you cutting off the audio feed when a man is cutting a promo? It's one thing to do it in the Santos Escobar street fight with the holy shit chants. I didn't like it, but it's not like it actively took away from what I needed to hear. Whereas I missed the whole crucial piece of the story they're trying to tell because they muted the crowd. Why even have an audience at that point in the first place if you're just going to censor everything they do? Like, what is the point of it? And unfortunately, I think we got too used to the no audience or the wrestler audience in the Performance Center that this wasn't an issue before, but it is now. But that's garbage. The idea of handing Joe Gacy a mic is so that I can hear what Joe Gacy has to say. And you muted the audio feed while he was speaking multiple times over and over again. I thought my internet was messing up, and that's why I couldn't hear it. But it was their choice. How am I supposed to A, enjoy the show, B, hear what he has to say, C, understand the story? If I was tuning in for the very first time watching that program tonight, and I saw that as their production, I'd never watch the show again. Because if I can't understand what I'm watching and I'm trying to figure out what I'm watching, why would I ever tune in again? If it's by design for me not to understand it. Am I the only one that has such a big issue with this?
No, because it takes away from the passion. You don't hear the reaction clearly. You have to like presume it in your head what might be. I mean, like a good example, if Johnny Gargano wasn't back in the company as he was recently, I wouldn't be shocked that they would actually censor out when Hayes was on there at the end of the night about the Johnny wrestling chants. They would mute that because, God forbid, somebody who used to not work for the company now is working, gets a chant here and there. It's a gripe, and you're not the only person, because I could think of a couple other people. I mean, Rob Wilkins, dude's awesome as hell, has had a few gripes about has had a few gripes at times about WWE production. I'm right there with you both. It's just they're doing things to censor stuff that shouldn't be censored. I mean, NXT, Raw, and SmackDown are TV 14 now. So it's like, why are you going to censor a word that is in the lexicon that can be derogatory at times, but it's a natural reaction.
Don't you want your heel to get heat? He's a bad guy. We're supposed to give him that kind of reaction. Like, I thought maybe it was a network thing a couple weeks ago, but then Matt Riddle openly drops multiple F-bombs on Raw and they bleep it instead of muting the mic.
Like, did you see what happened on Raw after they interviewed? There's an after part that's on YouTube.
That's what I was showing.
Yeah, about how Riddle says stuff about Seth is not. It won't be the only man in the whole in his relationship. That's what I was
referring to. That aired on TV.
And then afterwards, the other part that aired saying Seth seething at the phone saying, "You do not talk about my family," and literally, yeah.
So they can drop F-bombs on Raw, but the audience can't chant on the next night on the same network. That can't be a network decision. I don't know whose decision it is, but it's Bush League. It tarnishes the characters. It tarnishes the content of the promo. It hurts the understanding of a viewer. I have a lot of issues with WWE production. The constant camera cuts, how sterile the entire set feels. I could drone on and on about my issues with the production, but nothing, absolutely nothing, is that egregious as what they did tonight.
With the camera cut thing, for me, it's more so for like I can test this, and we'll talk to Tom at some point. Me and him have epilepsy, so I mean the camera cuts do not help. But it's ridiculous. It kills when Gacy and Grimes happens. It's not going to have any legs to stand because you're cutting off the reaction from the fans. This is why, and you're making my point even more valid that I've been saying. They need to travel for bigger events, and might be where they are in Orlando, but they need to get a bigger reaction than what they get every time at the PC Center or wherever they do it. Because at a takeover, you get a live reaction. You can't censor that. It's on Peacock. It's a paid format for some people, especially out of the United States where you're using the network still to pay monthly for it. It can't help this whole feud that they're trying to set up. It's not going to help this feud. And if they have Grimes creating his own faction or something, because it seems like they're heading that route, it kills that too. You're supposed to build momentum for feuds to have people care about, and now you're just killing certain things because the crowd is reacting to it. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm one of those people, I want shit to make sense.
You can't get a story over if you can't hear what they have to say. The character of Joe Gacy is supposed to garner heat. If I'm a viewer for the very first time, I don't tune in because I don't understand what the hell I'm watching by design. All around, it's awful. And whoever made that production call needs to be let go tonight. It's that egregious.
I mean, you're not wrong there. It's just
I hate calling for people's jobs, but that's a terrible decision.
It's production overall. It all depends on who pressed the buttons. There's certain things in this production for tonight I liked, like the whole thing of bringing back both sides, the UK people who held the UK title and the NXT title.
I like that too, wearing a Rhea Ripley shirt tonight.
And I also like the fact that they brought people that made sense. They had Fit Finlay in its part with the UK title. They had they had so many different things. I need stuff to make sense. And right now, on the production side of it, they're killing some of their stories and to make certain people not care. If we didn't have to talk about some of this stuff, if there was no such thing as wrestling media, podcasting, or whatnot, you know how many people have probably tuned out on that and watched something else? It's probably a lot.
If I didn't have to do this show, I would have turned it off.
And that's how bad, because their problem, the ratings have been pretty decent the last couple of weeks, but the problem is that there's certain things that they're putting all their eggs into rather than just building an entire show around stuff to make it sense. I mean, they're making more segues on Raw and SmackDown, and NXT is coming right from behind. I understand that, but if you're going to treat every brand as their own individual entity, you need to let the fans in those places react in a way they need to be. If you're having TV 14 on the screen as soon as you start in that little corner, utilize it and let the fans react normally. And even if it says the F word or holy shit and all this stuff, so long as it's not in malice and derogatory to certain things, let it be. Let it enjoy it. I mean, look at the Attitude Era. As much as people say, stop recreating the Attitude Era. Well, what do you expect? Because of the fact that wrestling now is like, back to where it was during the Attitude Era. You see on AEW, there's blood and guts on stuff. There's people like literally at GCW shows, literally doing barbed wire matches and stuff. It's just, it's literally insane. So it's like you saying, "Oh well, I don't want the crowd hearing it," but you have them there.
Right.
Go on the road for your special shows. Let the crowd dictate where things go and go from there, because that's what made NXT, the black and gold brand, special, because you didn't know what was going to happen next.
It's just a bad decision all around. And I think I do a lot of rants on podcasts. I think that's the first time I've really gone full rant mode on our show, which is actually a really good track record for me.
Hey, for me, I don't care. I let it go. If I'm in that mood, just let it go.
So, from what I gathered from the promo, and as y'all can gather, I didn't gather much. Joe Gacy's what Cameron Grimes doesn't have a title because he doesn't have his dad. Joe Gacy wants to provide that. Yada yada yada. We go backstage. Next match is Briggs and Jensen versus Fallon Henley versus Last Legend and Pretty Deadly. Stoker and Holly pick up the win. After Elton Prince, I need to get their names down. Provided a roll up on Brooks Jensen. That'll come back later on. So the next segment was one of the people popping up backstage, and my favorite one was the Shayna Baszler. That felt real. That felt authentic. I really like that. The Finn Balor one worked too. The Pete Dunne one worked too. But I really like the
I like the Dunne
one.
one. I like the Pete Dunne one better because it's like you hear the crowd say "Butch." It made more sense, especially with Finn. Finn Finley there. It just made so much easy to understand it all and everything. Just like the transition of it all. I think my favorite one was Kaylee Ray, Elba Fire going up to, the final boss is what they call her. Because I can't say Japanese names for the hell of it.
Meiko Satomura.
Yeah, that they look at each other and it's like, about that, what that title means. And she's like, I won that title. And then they just smile and they go their separate ways.
Sorry.
I won't be shocked if Meiko wins all of this and she runs both titles. And
I
then
think they put Priestley in so Priestley can win it. Meiko's never moved to the States. I don't see that happening now. Just because NXT UK doesn't exist. Because she's been adamant about not moving to the States. I think the triple threat match is a way to get the belt off of Mandy Rose onto Bea Priestley, and that will allow you to build the brand going forward around Priestley. Blair Davenport. I gotta start getting used to calling her Blair Davenport.
I think that would make sense, but I think Meiko, the final boss, is going to get both titles because they're so high on her, and they want somebody strong to establish NXT Europe, but also keep the NXT title relevant. And why? And the thing is, if you're not
going to have Blair Davenport, though.
Yeah, but if you have somebody whose name is the final boss, I mean, if you're a champion, wouldn't you
give an alias to Blair Davenport, and that issue solved.
Yeah, well, but I mean, it's just the litany of people going through and stuff. It was refreshing. It was a little different. And I liked the last one of the night. You had Ciampa sitting there and literally says, can I call her Goldie? And Breaker's like nodding him. It's like, you're the one. It was like a litany of history of the NXT UK and the NXT title. And it showed like Balor. And then at the end, you had, Ciampa in there talking to him. And litany of people going through both sides of it. I mean, it would have been cool if they did that with the tag titles too, just for the sake of it having it more
but
special. But
tag belts, A, there's matches and booked to the end of the show. But B, all of those teams are split. American Alpha isn't a thing. The only big names that held the tag belts together that are still a team are the Revival, who are in another company.
yeah, but you have both members of DIY in the company now, so
But
they
they're not
both could have
together.
just they're not together, but they can make an appearance and say, hey, we're not doing our own thing now, but we made those titles important, and just continue. It'd be like, you have to follow suit and make both of them important, but they're not going to do it because they, like you said, they just made the match tonight.
Yeah.
But
Like,
what
if you go
to
down the
me,
list of tag champions, British Ambition, one's not done anything since being released, and the other's a champion for another company. You can't use any of them. Blake and Murphy are gone. Lucha Dragons are gone. Vods are gone. Revival's gone. Alpha's gone. Other Authors of Pain are gone. UE is gone. The only teams that are still together that held the NXT Tag Champions ships are War Machine and the Street Profits.
nah, but still, I mean, I like how they did all this stuff just to connect the history of it. But I think the one that I liked the most out of all of them was, besides the Elba Fire one and Miko, I liked Champa and Breaker towards the tail end of the night, because he literally nodded and agreed into it, and it made perfect sense because Breaker got the title off, got it off from Champa originally. So it's like you're connecting Black and Gold into the new one and segueing into what Breaker is now. It it made a perfect way of Champa literally giving him a pet talk, saying, "You're the extension of our legacy. You're the one who holds what we build, and you need to uphold that." And it's the same thing with the UK with Pete Dunne. It was Bates and Dunne going for that title when it originally was launched, and it makes perfect sense that you're connecting each individual dot and to get to Worlds Collide.
So from there, the next match was Andre Chase versus Charlie Dempsey, the son of William Regal. Fun little matchup, very technically sound. Andre Chase won by a victory roll. What were your thoughts?
Hey, let it flow. Chase won with a victory roll. It wasn't much. I liked how, like, Charlie Dempsey, he's like a younger Timothy Thatcher a little bit, just that old school catch can kind of grappling kind of style. I could see him doing something with the fight pit eventually if they want to give him that. I would love to see another fight pit match, but that's kind of not going to happen anytime soon. It's just it is what it is. It gave Chase to look strong, but it hurt Dempsey anyways. It made give opportunity to Chase to get something built up after everything, but I don't know. I mean, I'd rather see, if they're high on Dempsey, with somebody who can match with him. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see him like against Diamond Mine, one of the members of Diamond Mine, like Roderick Strong at some point, just to make it perfect sense, more technical styles. But it was a
The next
teachable
match
moment.
on the card, another match I don't have anything to say about. Kiana James versus Zoe Stark. Zoe Stark picks up the victory. That's about it.
It was a squash match, basically. That promo before everything didn't make any sense either.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. So the next match was Brutus Creed, Damon Camp, and Julius Creed versus Gallus. A really fun, solid tag match. There was a spot where where Mark Coffey hit, or Joe Coffey, one of the two Coffey brothers. So Mark Coffey gives him an inside cradle, and he reverses the inside cradle. Or Julius Creed reverses the inside cradle, goes into a handstand onto Coffey's body, and then lifts him into a body slam position from there. Really cool. They have really good. They have something here with the Creeds. Tremendous athletes. But what I really want to talk to you about is, remember a couple weeks ago when Elena Black turned on Roxy?
Yeah. He Cora Jade, yeah.
Yeah, Cora Jade. Sorry, I'm still getting the name changes always take me a while to get used to. So Cora Jade turns on Roxanne Perez. And the skateboard breaks.
Oh my god, don't get it. If you're gonna take a video of that and just let it play, that I will sit there and just laugh my ass off.
Something similar happened tonight. Roderick Strong, Damon Kemp was supposed to take the phone from Roddy Strong, right? And throw it down on the ground and stop on it. But he grabs it and accidentally checks it across a couple feet away.
Yeah, I noticed
So he
that.
had
I
to
was
pick
just
it
like,
up, put it right back down on the ground so he could do the shuffle. You know what it reminds
props
me
in
of?
NXT.
It reminds me of that old house show where The Undertaker was working Davey Boy Smith, okay? And this was 91. I have a video of it. I'll send it to you after. So this
Oh
is
god.
91, and The Undertaker hits the tombstone on Davey Boy. So Undertaker hits the tombstone, and they're in the UK. One of those shows. So he hits him with the tombstone. He puts, or no, he doesn't hit him with the tombstone. He hits him with an urn. So he hits him with the urn. He puts the urn on the apron, and then the urn falls off the apron. So instead of going for the original finish, the Undertaker decides, let me go to the floor, pick the urn up, and put it back where I was supposed to put it. Then he has to hit him with the tombstone because Davey Boy's no longer out of it by the time he gets back in the ring.
Yeah. At least it made it interesting. It's like, oh shit, and then he just stomps on it. I was like, oh my god, they keep doing this over and over again.
It's a very
They
fun
need
match, though. I'm very
they
interested to
need
see
to
where.
stop doing props in the middle of matches.
I'm very interested to see where the Roderick Strong stuff with Diamond Mine goes. The match ended with Gallus picking up the victory, and Holly and Stoker. I have no idea what their real names is. One of them's named after Elton John, right?
I believe so, yeah.
I think Holly is named after Elton John and Prince, like
Mm-hmm.
Elton Prince or something, which makes sense for the characters. I have no idea what Stoker's new name is. So
Well,
I'm just gonna refer to him as Pretty Deadly.
pretty much.
So Pretty Deadly comes out, attacks Diamond Mine. From there, Brooks Jensen, and Josh Briggs come out, attack. They brawl. They set up the Fatal 4-Way we've all seen. And a Fatal 4-Way elimination match is booked for both titles at the Worlds Collide event. And then the Carmelo Hayes, the A champion, says that his services aren't required for Worlds Collide because he's not going to accept just any match. And then he goes through all of the major North American champions, Johnny Gargano. There was a Patrick Clark reference in there, which I found surprising.
Yeah.
But he
Considering he
didn't
supposedly
mention
got arrested
Ricochet,
today.
who then challenged him. He's gotten arrested like 3 times in the last 2 months. Was bailed out by Ashanti Adonis, too. Tahuti Ma's got some explaining to do. So Ricochet comes out and says that the A champion doesn't have the most memorable reign, yada, 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 the usual. And they booked a match between Ricochet and Carmelo Hayes. That's going to be an athletic.
That's going to be a barn burn.
Contest.
That might be the match of the night.
That might be NXT's match of the year.
Yeah, pretty well. That's kind of hard to, because they just had a good one recently. So,
but I'm very excited for that match. That's gonna be really good. I don't want Carmelo Hayes to lose to Ricochet, but it's something. You gotta have some
honestly,
champions retain because
I
at least one champion's losing their title every other match.
I think Breaker is going to win. I
Hold
think
on, we
Nakamura.
haven't gotten to that yet.
No,
So
but I know, but it's going towards like I think this title is the one title and the opportunity you can get. You can get the title off of Mello to go against Breaker, and that would make sense because then you could turn around and have Ricochet go for a run like Ziggler for a little bit, and then give that belt to Solo when he gets back.
So this weekend's card for Worlds Collide. Main event for the United Kingdom Championship and the Man NXT Championship. Tyler Bate defends against Braun Breaker. For the NXT UK Women's Championship and the NXT Women's Championships, the two champions, Meiko Satomura and Mandy Rose, defend against Bea Priestley, Blair Davenport. For the NXT Women's Tag Team Championships, Nikki Cross and Piper Niven challenge Kaden Carter and Katana Chance in the first defense of the brand new Women's Tag Team Champions. And a fatal four-way elimination match to determine both the NXT UK and NXT Tag Team Champions. Pretty deadly. Elton Prince and apparently his name is Kit Wilson. I'm just gonna keep calling him Holly and Stoker. As alongside Gallus, will challenge champions Josh Briggs and Brooks Jensen and the Creed brothers. And in the fifth and final contest on the card, NXT North American Champion Carmelo Hayes defends against Ricochet, former NXT North American Champion. So, what are your thoughts, predictions on the card? Kind of go into them a little bit too.
Breaker's going to win. You're going to keep Breaker strong. Bates is going to ask for a rematch at the next special show, or if they do like bring back a takeover, that would make perfect sense. I think if they do that and they do it right, they might end up bringing Hayes in. I think Ricochet is going to win. I think that will give you the opportunity to bring back Solo Sikoa and give him a proper run with the North American Championship. As they've been hinting at, is that he's kind of the pseudo number one contender. Just the way they've been building him up. Though I think Nakamura, I think the final boss, Mikos Satomura, if I'm saying it right, is going to win that triple threat. It makes sense in a way because you're bringing most of your UK talent over, and her being quote unquote the final boss, it would make that title that you're unifying a lot stronger if somebody has the pedigree of her in holding that title, and then you could set up a bunch of feuds with those things. You could have Elba Fire, you could have Mandy go back at it and stuff. I mean, it could set that up. The four-way match for the tag belts, it's got to be the Creeds. They're the only, other than Briggs and Jensen holding that title, the Creeds are the only really credible, strong tag team in NXT right now overall. I think they're the only ones that fans are standing behind for the most part, so they have that. So that would make perfect sense. Like I said, Ricochet has to win it so that way Hayes can get away from the North American scene and go after the NXT title. I already said, Nikki Cross and Piper Niven need to win the women's tag titles because then they can go on and fix that thing that McAfee said on air about the women's tag titles on the main roster being credible enough to actually be on all brands. So you need to fix that, and that's one way of fixing it, and then giving it to somebody else. It's just you need to have make sense. But I think the match of the night is going to be Ricochet and Hayes, and they're going to be like one of the matches in NXT that are up there, it's going to be like either one or two, because we had a really good match with, now Gunther versus Roderick Strong. That was an amazing match in itself.
So, solid predictions for me. Carmelo Hayes, I have going over. I don't think Ricochet's long-term answer for NXT. Although I would like a reset for Ricochet because a soft reset from his main roster stuff would do him some good. I think you can have somebody else beat Carmelo Hayes along the line. You've still got a lot of time before Survivor Series weekend in Boston, so you have to kill a couple more months with Hayes before you put him in the main title picture. Anyway, I would have Carmelo Hayes go over, solidify his reign as the A champion in the history of the North American title. I would put the belt on Sikoa next, but you don't have to. From there, the women's championships, I'd have Blair Davenport go over. I don't think Mako wants to move to the States. Obviously, I'm not privy to that information. I'm speculating. I also feel Blair Davenport's been more established on NXT television. He's already started to build feuds with other women in the roster, and there's a natural pivot once Mandy Rose goes to the main roster, which I do think is happening. She's already had a run-in with Corey Jade. That's your tie into the Corey Jade Roxanne Perez story. So I would have Blair Davenport go over. For the tag champions, I agree with the Creeds. I could see them putting it on Pretty Deadly or Gallus to establish Gallus, but there's nothing interesting in the NXT tag division, so keep it on the people who are garnering the most interest anyway and eliciting the biggest reaction. From there, that's 3 matches, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 more.
Yeah, you have
Michael Niven and Nikki Cross. Okay, so I would keep the titles remaining separate. I think McAfee probably just misspoke. You're about to do a transitional reign with Aaliyah and Raquel Gonzalez on the main roster anyway. I don't think you should have 2 transitional champions for both divisions at the same time. I think this would. We talked about how Chance and Carter aren't established. A win over Cross and Niven would absolutely establish them, and that would do more good for the division than Niven and Cross running through everybody. So from there, in the main event, I agree with Braun Breaker. I don't know if I like the idea of getting a rematch right away, but with him still signed, I assume he's staying in the States long term. So you could do a lot with him on television. So maybe, but Braun Breaker's probably the way to go. I don't have Braun Breaker lose the belt until Carmelo Hayes Survivor Series weekend.
I think another thing you could do is, and you just brought this up as a good idea, you could have Bates go after the NXT.
It's Bate, by the way. There's no S.
Well, Bate. You can get Bate versus Hayes for the North American Championship.
It's not like Norman and Norma Bates, although if you've never watched Bates Motel, why am I going on that rant?
No.
Vera Farmiga is great in that show. But
you could have that set up, and then there you go. That you could take the title, the North American title, off of him.
That would be a good way to pivot Hayes. I wouldn't mind Tyler Bate being North American champion. So those are our predictions. That was our post show. Big Daddy Throwback. Where can the good folks find you?
Every Thursday night, Wicked Crazy Pinfalls going to be on this week. Going to probably play video games or see what else is going on. We're going to be doing something with Tom Talks Rubbish, both of us, very soon this week. I think it's Friday. We're going to end up we're going to talk about the NXT scene completely overall for the most part, if what I take it as it. I'll probably be on the watch along for Worlds Collide with the Roundtable podcast.
I'll be doing Twitter coverage for main Sim account, folks.
And you'll probably get my opinions on it as it go. I mean, other than that, I'm here with, my homie right here, just talking about NXT every Tuesday night. You never know when I'll pop up on stuff here and there. Go to youtube.com/throwback27 and twitch.tv throwback978. when we stream, try to get a lot of people talking and stuff. Try to interact and do good things. Other than that, I'm home taking care of my son and my family and making sure everybody's okay and making
Man,
sure my
that
friends
kid
are okay.
has to have lungs.
Yeah, he does. Try being in an absolute dead sleep and he goes off. It's like a beer cat. I feel like I'm Timon
I
from
should try
Lion
being
King.
absolutely dead sleep. I couldn't tell you the last time I got deep sleep.
I can get into it, and all of a sudden he starts crying. I get up real quick.
That's where you can find Patrick. You can find me at the Jameus on Twitter. Right now I don't really have many shows, but I have a lot coming up. So be sure to follow my socials. A lot of big projects coming up. I can't let the cat out of that bag yet, but of course you can find me every other week doing the TWM Talks Indies with Ash Nova and Queen of the Indies. Tiff and Ash are great. Our show's done really well so far. I'm very happy with it. So be sure to check that out. And every week on the NXT 2.0 post show with my man, Throwback.
Which way it goes, yeah.
We're throwing it back every week, Patrick.
Yeah.
Of course, like, subscribe, Body Sam's YouTube channel. We've got a lot of great shows.
Support the channel, support everybody.
Indeed is great with Righteous Reg and Mike Hamley. Tea and Tights, Andy and Dan. We've got a lot of really good stuff. We have one of the shows I produce, Code of Honor, is releasing a statement about its future imminently. So be sure to check out their statement. Kyle does great work for us. Of course, read our news. I'm an editor, so I have to say that. But I have to say we have some really good folks. But Rami does a great job with MMA. Corey Brennan and Brady do a tremendous job with the wrestling news. Be sure to give all of our guys some love. Want to take it away, Patrick?
Other than that, check out Cass too. Cass does amazing work on the site and everything else. Our boss. So other than that, I mean, go support other people. Go support the Roundtable Podcast crew. You know, you might see Drew Nicholas on there from time to time. Shane, Julian, and you know
the
franchise.
Julian.
Yeah. But you know, if we're gonna find out and try to get Drew an opponent soon, so we'll work on that. And I have a couple of things I have to work on. But other than that, do a good deed, pay it forward. Brody, if you're watching this, I love you.
Worlds are colliding.